Welcome to the New Life Stories channel. We hope you will have fun with us. Enjoy watching.
My wife handed me divorce papers at my retirement party while my adult children applauded. I signed them silently, knowing this fool had just evicted herself. 35 years at the fabrication plant. 35 years of waking up at 4 in the morning, scrubbing grease from under my fingernails, and pulling double shifts so my family never had to worry about a bill. That afternoon, the break room was decorated with cheap streamers and a sheet cake that spelled out, "Happy Retirement, Arthur," in blue icing. It was not much, but it was honest. It was respectful, or so I thought. I was holding a paper cup of lukewarm punch, listening to my foreman, Dave, tell a story about a forklift accident from the 90s, when the double doors swung open. The room went quiet. It was not the respectful silence of anticipation. It was the awkward silence of intrusion. Elena walked in. She was wearing her Sunday best, a tailored cream suit that I knew cost more than my first car. She was not smiling. She walked with the kind of purpose that usually meant I had forgotten to take the trash out, but multiplied by 1,000. Behind her trailed our children, Mark and Sarah. They were grown adults now, 28 and 26, yet they followed her like ducklings, smirking with an arrogance they had not earned. "Arthur," Elena said. Her voice did not waver. She stopped 3 feet from me, creating a stage in the center of the room. "Since you were starting a new chapter of your life today, I decided I should start mine too." She pulled a thick manila envelope from her designer bag and thrust it toward my chest. I had to drop my cup to catch it before it hit the floor. The punch splattered onto my work boots. "What is this, Elena?" I asked. My voice was calm, though my heart was hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. "Divorce papers," she announced, turning slightly so the entire room could hear. "I'm done waiting, Arthur. I am done being the wife of a man who settles for mediocrity. I want my half, and I want to live before I am too old to enjoy it." That was the signal. Mark, my son, let out a woo and started clapping. Sarah joined in, her applause sharp and stinging like a slap. Then, a few of Elena's friends who had slipped in the back started clapping too. My coworkers just stared, their mouths hanging open, looking at me with a mixture of pity and horror. I looked at the envelope. Then I looked at my wife. For 30 years, I had paid for everything. The cars, the college tuitions, the vacations I did not go on because I had to work. I looked at Mark, whose student loans I had paid off 3 months ago. I looked at Sarah, whose wedding I had funded by refinancing my truck. They were applauding my destruction. "You want this done now?" I asked. "Here? In front of my boss?" "I want witnesses," Elena sneered. "So you CA not claim you did not receive them. Sign the acknowledgement, Arthur. Let me go." I did not argue. I did not beg. I did not ask her to step outside. I reached into my shirt pocket, pulled out my cheap ballpoint pen, and clicked it. I pressed the envelope against the wall next to the safety poster and signed a receipt of service. The scratching of the pen was the only sound in the room. I handed the papers back to her. She looked surprised, maybe disappointed that I had not made a scene she could use against me later. I leaned in close, smelling her expensive perfume, a scent I had paid for. "You have no idea what you just did," I whispered. "I freed myself," she said loudly, playing to the crowd. "Come on, kids. Let us go celebrate." They turned and marched out. Mark did not even look at me. Sarah cast one glance back, but it was filled with defiance, not regret. I stood there for a moment. Dave put a hand on my shoulder. "Artie, man, I'm so sorry. Do you want to take a minute?" "No, Dave," I said. I wiped the punch from my boots with a napkin. "I'm retired. I'm going home." I walked out to the parking lot, the applause still ringing in my ears like tinnitus. I got into my truck, but I did not start the engine immediately. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The humiliation burned, hot and suffocating. But beneath the anger, beneath the shock, a cold, hard realization was forming. Elena thought she had timed this perfectly. She thought she was divorcing a man with a fresh pension and a paid-off house, legally entitled to 50% of everything. She thought she was cashing out. She had forgotten the one conversation we had 25 years ago. The one piece of paper she had not thought about since 1999. I started the truck. I was not going home to cry. I was going home to prepare for war. Chapter 2. The house was quiet when I got there. Too quiet. It felt less like a home and more like a museum of a life that had just been canceled. Elena was not there. She was likely out at a fancy dinner with the kids, spending money from our joint account to celebrate leaving me. I walked into the kitchen. On the counter, there was a list. Elena's handwriting. It was not a grocery list. It was a list of contractors. Kitchen remodel, master bath expansion, pool installation. She had not just planned to leave me. She had planned to kick me out and renovate the house with my money. She expected me to move into a shitty apartment while she lived here, using my pension to fund her new chapter. I went to the fridge, took out a beer, and walked to the living room. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Mark. Dad, do not make this difficult. Mom deserves to be happy. You've been dragging her down for years. Just give her the house and do not fight the alimony. It's the least you can do. I stared at the screen. Dragging her down. I remember the overtime shifts I worked to buy Mark his first car. I remember the nights I came home too tired to eat, just so Elena could have the country club membership. I did not reply. I blocked his number. Then I blocked Sarah S. Then I blocked Elena S. For the next 3 weeks, I became a ghost in my own life. I lived in the guest bedroom. Elena came and went as she pleased, treating me like a squatter she was waiting to evict. She stopped buying groceries for the house, only bringing home expensive takeout for herself. You should start packing, Arthur, she told me one evening, stepping over my legs as I sat in the recliner. My lawyer says the judge will grant me temporary exclusive use of the residence within a month. I do not want your junk cluttering up the garage when the contractors start. I'm not going anywhere until the judge says so, I said, not looking away from the TV. Suit yourself, she scoffed. It'll just be more humiliating for you when a sheriff escorts you out. The isolation was brutal. The kids did not visit, except to pick up Elena for lunch. I'd see them in the driveway, laughing, looking at the house like they were already measuring the rooms for their own use. I was the old man, the relic, the obstacle. I spent my days gathering documents. I went to the bank. I went to the records office at the county clerk. I went to the storage unit I had kept for 20 years. The one Elena complained was a waste of money because she never saw what was inside. I found the box I needed. It was dusty, smelling of old cardboard and mildew. I opened it, my hands shaking slightly. Inside was a single-file folder. I checked the contents. The paper was yellowed, the ink slightly faded, but the stamps and signatures were clear as day. I smiled for the first time in weeks. The day of the preliminary hearing arrived. Elena had hired a shark, a lawyer named Mr. Vance, who wore a suit that shimmered under the fluorescent lights of the courthouse. I had hired a quiet man named Samuel, who operated out of a strip mall office next to a dry cleaner. In the hallway before the hearing, Elena would not look at me. Mark and Sarah stood on either side of her like bodyguards. Dad, Sarah said, stepping forward. She looked annoyed. Just settle. Why are you dragging this out? You know the law. Mom gets half, plus alimony because she barely worked. You just wasting everyone's inheritance on lawyers. My inheritance? I asked quietly. I thought I was dragging everyone down. You know what I mean, she snapped. Stop being selfish for once. We ready, Samuel said, stepping out of the courtroom. He looked tired, his tie slightly askew. Elena's lawyer smirked at him. We filed into the courtroom. It was a small room, smelling of floor polish and stale coffee. The judge, a stern woman with glasses perched on the end of her nose, looked over the files. We are here to determine temporary orders regarding property division and spousal support, the judge said. Mr. Vance, you may begin. Vance stood up, buttoning his jacket. Your Honor, this is a clear-cut case. A 30-year marriage. My client, Mrs. Elena Miller, sacrificed her career to raise the children and support Mr. Miller. Now that he has retired with a substantial pension and a fully paid-off home, she is requesting exclusive use of the marital residence, 50% of all liquid assets, and spousal support in the amount of $4,000 a month. He paused for effect. Mr. Miller has been hostile and uncooperative. We believe he is a flight risk with the assets. We ask that his accounts be frozen immediately. Elena dabbed at dry eyes with a tissue. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar. The judge looked at me. Mr. Miller, do you have a response? Samuel stood up. He did not button his jacket. He did not use big words. He just picked up the yellowed file I had given him. Your Honor, Samuel said, we do not dispute the length of the marriage. We do not dispute that the petitioner wishes for a divorce. However, we dispute the characterization of the assets, specifically the house. Elena rolled her eyes audibly. Vance chuckled. It is the marital home, Your Honor. They lived there for 25 years. Yes, Samuel said. They lived in Mr. Miller's house. Chapter 3. The air in the courtroom shifted. It was not a sudden silence, but a gradual thickening of the atmosphere, as if all the oxygen was being sucked out by the impending truth. Mr. Vance, the judge said, peering over her glasses. Was the respondent implying? Samuel walked to the bench and handed over a document. Your Honor, this is the deed to the property at 424 Oak Street. You will notice the date of purchase is August 1998. The parties were married in September 1999. Vance waved a dismissive hand. Premarital purchase, sure. But mortgage payments were made with community funds for 30 years. That commingles the asset. The community has a lien on the property. Mrs. Miller is entitled to half the equity build-up. Elena nodded vigorously. She whispered something to Sarah, who smirked at me. They thought they knew the law. They thought they were smart. Actually, Your Honor, Samuel continued, his voice monotone, there was no mortgage. Elena froze. Her head snapped towards Samuel. Excuse me? The judge asked. Mr. Miller purchased the home outright, in cash, using an inheritance from his late father, 1 year prior to the marriage, Samuel said, handing over another document. Here is the bank transfer record from 1998 showing the full payment. Here is the title, free and clear, in Arthur Miller's name only. It has never been refinanced. No community funds were ever used to pay down the principal because there was no principal. But the taxes, Vance stammered, his confidence cracking. Maintenance, improvements. Mr. Miller paid the property taxes and insurance from a separate account he maintained with inheritance residuals, Samuel said, relentlessly stacking paper on the judge's desk. And as for maintenance, Mrs. Miller did not work for the last 20 years. Any community funds used for repairs were generated solely by Mr. Miller's labor. In this state, the appreciation of separate property remains separate unless the spouse contributed labor or funds that increased its value. Mrs. Miller did neither. Iwakid Elena. The color was draining from her face, leaving her makeup looking like war paint on a corpse. She gripped the table. That essay lie, she hissed. I decorated that house. I bought the curtains. Decorating is not a capital improvement, Your Honor, Samuel said. The house is a separate property. It belongs entirely to Arthur Miller. The judge reviewed the documents. She flipped page after page. Finally, she looked up. The documentation seems conclusive. The residence is separate property. But where will I live? Elena blurted out. He's not just throw me out. We're getting to that, Samuel said. Now, regarding the spousal support. Vance tried to recover. Your Honor, regardless of the house, my client has been dependent on Mr. Miller for decades. She needs support to maintain the marital standard of living. We object to any spousal support, Samuel said. On what grounds? The judge asked. It is a long-term marriage. On the grounds of dissipation of assets, Samuel said. He pulled out a thick binder. For the last 15 years, while Mr. Miller worked overtime, Mrs. Miller had control of the household finances. We have conducted a forensic accounting of the joint accounts. He handed the binder to the judge. A copy landed in front of Elena. Mrs. Miller has spent an average of $3,000 a month on personal luxury goods, clothing, and unauthorized loans to her adult children, Samuel said. I saw Mark and Sarah shrink in their seats. Meanwhile, she failed to contribute to the retirement savings as agreed. Mr. Miller's pension is the only thing left. Mrs. Miller has effectively spent her share of the marital estate in advance. To award her alimony now would be double-dipping. The judge opened the binder. Her eyes widened. $500 for eyelash extensions? Monthly? Arthur approved those expenses. Elena shrieked. He never said no. Because I never saw the statements, Elena, I said, speaking for the first time. You intercepted the mail. You told me we were saving money. You told me we were broke, so I kept working overtime. Vance looked at the binder, then at his client. He closed his folder. He knew the ship was sinking. Mrs. Miller, the judge said, her voice icy. You are asking this court to award you alimony from a man whose earnings you have been squandering for decades, while you refuse to seek employment. I was a homemaker. Elena sobbed. I raised the kids. The kids have been adults for 10 years, the judge snapped. You are 54 years old, Mrs. Miller. You are healthy. You have a college degree you never used. You are employable. The gavel felt like it was hanging in the air, a guillotine waiting to drop. The residence is confirmed as separate property of the respondent, the judge ruled. Mrs. Miller, you have 7 days to vacate the premises. Request for temporary spousal support is denied pending trial. But frankly, Mr. Vance, looking at these spending records, I would not hold my breath. The respondent's pension will be divided according to the QDRO formula, but given the dissipation of other assets, I am inclined to offset Mrs. Miller's share against the funds she has already wasted. Elena made a sound like a dying animal. A low, keening wail of pure despair. 7 days? She gasped. But I have nowhere to go. I do not have any money. You have half of the joint checking account, the judge said. That should be about $3,000. I suggest you use it for a security deposit on an apartment. And Mrs. Miller? I suggest you get a job. Chapter 4. The walk out of the courthouse was very different from the walk-in. Elena was not strutting. She was slumped against the wall near the metal detectors, sobbing into a tissue while her lawyer explained his hourly rates for the appeal she could not afford. Mark and Sarah stood awkwardly by the exit. They saw me coming and straightened up. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a terrified realization. Their gravy train had not just derailed, it had exploded. Dad, Mark said, stepping into my path. His voice was trembling. Dad, wait. We did not know. Did not know what? I stopped. I did not yell. I felt a strange, hollow calm. We did not know about the house, Sarah said, tears welling up in her eyes. Or the money Mom spent. She told us you were hoarding it. She said you were financially abusive. So you clapped, I said. What? At the party. When she humiliated me. When she handed me those papers in front of the men I've worked with for 30 years. You clapped. You cheered. We were just trying to support Mom, Mark pleaded. She is our mother. And I'm your father, I said. But that did not seem to matter when you thought I was the one ending up on the street. You picked a side. You picked the winner. Or who you thought was the winner. Dad, please, Sarah grabbed my sleeve. Mom has nowhere to go. And not she stay in the house until she finds something? Just for a few weeks? I looked at my daughter. I saw the fear in her eyes. It was not fear for her mother. It was fear that if Elena did not stay with me, she would have to stay with them. She has 7 days, I said. The judge was clear. But where will she go? Mark asked. She not live with us. I have roommates. Sarah has a studio. That sounds like a family problem, I said. But not my family problem. I pulled my arm away from Sarah gently, but firmly. I paid off your loans, Mark. I paid for your wedding. Sarah, I did my job. I'm done. I walked past them, through the glass doors, and into the bright sunlight. The next week was a flurry of activity, but not mine. Elena scrambled. She tried to beg, threatening to kill herself, then threatening to sue me again. I stayed in the guest room, door locked, until the 7th day. On the final morning, the sheriff arrived to ensure the vacate order was followed. Elena dragged her suitcases down the driveway. She had filled her car, the one asset the judge let her keep, with her clothes and the expensive knickknacks she had bought with my overtime pay. She stopped at the driver's side door and looked back at the house. I stood on the porch, holding a mug of coffee. "You a cruel man, Arthur," she spat, her face blotchy from crying. 30 years, and you throw me out like trash." "I did not throw you out, Elena," I said, taking a sip. "You served me the papers. You demanded this. You wanted your independence. You wanted to start a new chapter." I pointed her car. "Start reading." She got in, slammed the door, and peeled out of the driveway. I watched her go until the taillights disappeared around the corner. 10 minutes later, a locksmith van pulled up. "You Arthur?" the guy asked, hopping out with a drill. "That's me. Changing all the cylinders?" "Every single one," I said, "and I want the deadbolts reinforced." By sunset, the house was secure. I walked through the rooms. They were emptier now. She had taken the good china, the paintings, the rugs. But what remained was mine. The silence was not lonely anymore. It was peaceful. I went out to the back porch and sat in my rocking chair. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange. I cracked open a beer. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Elena. The hotel declined my card. Mark would not answer. "Please, Arthur, just for tonight." I looked at the message. I thought about the applause in the break room. I thought about the smirk on her face when she handed me the envelope. I thought about the contractors she tried to hire with my money to renovate my house for herself. I deleted the message. Then I turned the phone off and sat on the railing. I took a deep breath of the cool evening air. I could smell the fresh-cut grass and the charcoal from a neighbor's grill. For the first time in 30 years, I did not have to wake up at 4 a.m. I did not have to work overtime to pay for a lifestyle I did not want. I did not have to apologize for existing in my own home. I took a long drink of beer. It tasted like freedom. "Happy retirement, Arthur," I whispered to the empty yard. "Happy retirement indeed."